Welcome to the European Association for Higher Education Advancements YouTube and podcast channel. We're going to be taking a deep dive today into a method for teaching English that might surprise you.
Yeah.
We're ditching all the fancy apps,
Okay.
and we're going old school.
All right.
So get ready,
I'm ready.
because we're going to be exploring how something as simple as a newspaper can be a powerhouse for learning English.
You know what I find fascinating? In our search for all these new and shiny methods, we often overlook the tools that are so readily available.
Yeah.
You know, this article from the EHEA kind of reminds us that the most effective resources can sometimes
Be right there in front of us.
be right under our noses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what they say?
Yeah?
This article
Okay.
makes a pretty bold claim.
Oh.
They're saying that newspapers can actually help supercharge all of the core English skills.
Oh.
Reading, writing, speaking, and listening.
All of them.
All of them. But how exactly can a newspaper achieve all that?
Yeah, I'm ready to be convinced.
I'm ready to be convinced, too.
Okay, well, imagine like a Swiss Army knife.
Oh.
But for language.
Right.
That's what a newspaper is. It's packed with all these different types of text.
Like what?
So you have, your formal news reports, you have informal opinion pieces,
All right.
advertisements, even comics.
Yeah.
And all of this diverse content exposes you to such a wide range of vocabulary and real-world language use.
That's so important.
It's crucial for developing fluency and comprehension.
Absolutely.
You think about it, you might encounter financial jargon in the business section, or eloquent descriptions in like art reviews, or even slang in the comics.
I never thought about it like that.
It's all in there.
Wow. Okay, so that makes sense for like reading and vocabulary.
Yeah.
But what about listening?
Mm.
When I think about newspapers and listening,
Yeah.
I just picture like a classroom full of students reading the newspaper out loud,
Yeah.
which doesn't sound that thrilling.
Well, actually, the article suggests some really creative activities.
Well.
Think about like listening to a news story
Okay.
and then having a group discussion about it.
Interesting.
Maybe even comparing it with the written article.
Oh, that's cool.
Or even focusing on specific elements like the content words and the intonation while reading aloud.
Right.
And this encourages, active listening,
Mm-hmm.
where you're not just hearing the words, but you're really understanding their meaning,
You're right.
how they fit together, and like the nuances of pronunciation and tone.
Now that you mention it, I remember when I was learning English, I really struggled with intonation.
Uh-huh.
It's so subtle,
It is.
but it makes such a huge difference in like conveying meaning.
Absolutely. And think about all the opportunities for practicing speaking skills.
Oh, yeah.
The article suggests all these group activities, like
What?
summarizing articles. You could create ads or even do some role-playing scenarios
Or playing.
based on news stories.
Mm.
And this collaborative element is so valuable because it lets you practice speaking in a supportive environment, share ideas and build confidence.
I never thought about role-playing with the newspaper,
Yeah.
but that actually sounds like a lot of fun,
It can be.
especially in a group.
Yeah. And it takes the pressure off individual performance while, encouraging you to think critically
Yeah.
and apply the language you're learning in a creative way.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I'm sold on the speaking and listening aspects.
Right.
But reading still seems like the most obvious skill that you would practice with a newspaper.
Of course, reading is foundational.
Yeah.
And newspapers, they just provide a wealth of material for honing those skills.
Yeah.
Think about it. You can skim an article to get the main idea.
Hmm.
You can scan for specific information, or you can really dive in and closely read to analyze the author's arguments.
Right.
But beyond the mechanics of reading,
Yes.
newspapers expose you to this vast range of topics and writing styles,
It's
which broadens your knowledge base, it challenges your perspectives, and it significantly expands your vocabulary.
So it's not just about reading for comprehension.
No.
It's about like developing critical thinking skills and expanding your worldview.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
And speaking of expanding skills, let's move on to writing.
Okay.
The article suggests some really engaging writing tasks,
Oh,
using newspapers as inspiration.
I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, so you could try like summarizing an article or drafting a story
Okay.
based on like a news event.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could craft some compelling ad copy, or even write a personal review of like a movie or restaurant based on the reviews you find in the paper.
Wow. So many options.
Right.
It sounds like newspapers can really help you develop different writing styles,
Mhm.
depending on like the purpose and the audience.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
And by analyzing, you know how professional writers craft their pieces,
Right.
you can start to develop your own writing voice. Newspapers provide these authentic models
That's so cool.
to learn from and emulate.
I'm starting to see how all these skills connect.
Uh-huh.
Like strong reading skills
Yeah.
are the foundation for effective writing.
Yes,
And newspapers can really provide that bridge between the two.
precisely. And we can't forget about grammar.
Oh, grammar.
You know, instead of those dreaded grammar drills,
Oh.
imagine like analyzing real-world examples from a newspaper article
Okay.
to see how grammar functions in actual communication.
I remember those drills.
Yeah.
It felt like learning the rules of a game without ever getting to play it.
Mm-hmm.
But how would you use a newspaper to teach grammar in a more engaging way?
Well, let's say you were learning about like different verb tenses.
Okay.
Instead of just like memorizing the rules,
Right.
you could highlight all the verbs in a news article and identify which tense they are.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
Or you could try converting sentences from active to passive voice and see how it changes the emphasis and the style of the writing.
That's a much more practical approach.
Yeah,
It makes those grammar rules come alive.
it does.
You're not just filling in the blanks.
No.
You're actually seeing how grammar is used to create meaning.
Mm-hmm.
It's like learning the rules of a game by watching a real match
Yes.
instead of just reading the rule book.
Exactly. And because you're applying those grammar rules in a real world context,
Right.
they're more likely to stick with you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It becomes less about memorization and more about understanding how language works.
This whole concept of using newspapers for language learning has really opened my eyes. It's such a versatile tool.
It is.
But I'm curious, are there any downsides
Mm,
or challenges that we haven't considered?
that's a great question.
Yeah.
And you're right, there are a few things to keep in mind.
Okay, what are they?
One challenge could be finding newspapers that are appropriate for the learner's language level.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Some newspapers use very complex language and vocabulary,
Right.
which can be overwhelming for beginners.
Absolutely. It's all about finding the right fit
Right.
for each student.
Teachers might need to pre-select or adapt articles to make sure they're accessible to their students.
That makes sense.
Another potential challenge is keeping the content fresh and engaging.
Oh, sure.
Newspapers, by their nature, deal with current events.
Yeah.
So it's important to stay up to date and choose articles that are relevant to the learner's interests.
You wouldn't want to be stuck analyzing an article about a 5-year-old political scandal.
No.
Talk about a snooze fest.
Exactly.
No.
But these challenges can be easily overcome
Oh.
with a bit of planning and creativity.
Okay.
Teachers can curate a collection of articles on different themes,
Right.
or even have students bring in articles that interest them.
Oh, I love that idea.
Yeah.
It turns the learning process into a collaborative exploration
Mm-hmm.
where students are actively involved in choosing the materials they work with.
Precisely. And that sense of ownership can make a huge difference in terms of motivation and engagement.
It's amazing what a difference that makes.
It really does.
I'm really inspired by this approach.
Good.
It's so simple, yet so effective.
Yeah.
And it makes you realize that you don't always need fancy technology or expensive textbooks
Right.
to create a rich and engaging learning environment.
Absolutely. Sometimes the best resources are the ones that we often overlook.
That's true.
And newspapers, with their connection to current events and real-world issues,
Yeah.
offer a fantastic way to make language learning more meaningful and relevant.
Speaking of making connections,
Yeah.
I'm curious about your thoughts on the historical context of newspapers.
They
They've always been a reflection of society, haven't they?
have, and
Yeah.
using them in the classroom brings that historical and cultural dimension to language learning.
I see.
It's not just about learning the language itself,
Right.
but understanding the culture and context in which it's used.
Oh, I like that.
Newspapers provide a window into that world.
It's like stepping into a time machine, and it goes beyond just reading the news. Think about all the different sections.
Yes.
Sports, entertainment, business, opinion pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Each one offers like a unique lens through which to explore language and culture.
You're absolutely right.
Wow.
A sports enthusiast might be more engaged by analyzing sports commentary,
Right.
while someone passionate about fashion could delve into the style section.
It's amazing how newspapers can cater to so many different interests.
It is.
And learning styles,
Yeah.
they offer something for everyone.
And that's what makes this approach so effective.
Mm,
Newspapers can spark curiosity and make learning feel personal and relevant,
yeah.
which ultimately leads to a deeper understanding and appreciation for the language.
Okay, so we've talked about the amazing benefits of using newspapers.
Yeah.
and we address some potential challenges.
Right.
But let's get practical for a moment.
Okay.
If someone's listening to this deep dive
Mhm.
and they're thinking, wow, I want to try this,
Yeah.
where would they even begin?
That's a great question. It can feel overwhelming at first
Sure.
with so many sections and types of articles to choose from.
Yeah.
But the beauty is you can tailor your approach
Right.
based on your individual learning goals and interests.
So if you're focusing on building your vocabulary, for example, what sections would you recommend?
The business section is a gold mine for specialized vocabulary,
Ah.
especially if you're interested in finance or economics.
Mm-hmm.
But don't underestimate the arts and culture section.
Okay.
Reviews of books, movies, and exhibitions often use rich, descriptive language
Right.
that can really expand your vocabulary.
Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's like a buffet of words.
Yeah.
You can pick and choose the ones that you find most appetizing.
That's a good analogy.
Thank you.
And what if someone wants to focus on understanding grammar structures? Are there any specific sections that would be particularly helpful?
Opinion pieces and editorials are usually well-structured,
Okay.
and they use a variety of complex sentences. Analyzing those can be really helpful for understanding how grammar works in context.
Yeah.
And don't forget about the letters to the editor section.
Oh, yeah.
Those are often shorter and more focused,
Right.
which can make them easier to analyze grammatically.
It's like a choose-your-own-adventure
Yes.
for language learning.
Absolutely.
You can really personalize your approach based on your interests and goals.
Exactly.
And I think that's what makes this concept so exciting.
Yes.
It's not just about passively absorbing information.
Yeah.
It's about actively engaging with the language and exploring the world around you.
Exactly. It's about taking ownership of your learning and finding those connections that make it meaningful and relevant.
Okay.
And newspapers provide that platform for exploration and discovery.
This deep dive has been such a revelation.
Good. I'm glad.
We started by thinking about newspapers as something you might skim over with your morning coffee.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing them as these incredible tools for language learning.
It's a real shift in perspective, isn't it?
It is.
It reminds us that we don't always need the latest technology or expensive resources
Right.
to create a rich and engaging learning experience.
Yeah.
Sometimes the most valuable tools are right in front of us, just waiting to be rediscovered.
So to wrap things up, I think our main takeaway today is this. If you're learning English, don't underestimate the power of the humble newspaper.
I agree.
It's a versatile and engaging resource that can enhance all your core language skills.
I couldn't agree more, and I'll leave you with this thought-provoking question to ponder.
Okay.
Think about all the different sections of a newspaper. Which one do you think will be most useful for you in learning English, and why? Let us know in the comments.
That's a great question to reflect on. And remember, if you're looking for more insightful content like this, be sure to follow the European Association for Higher Education Advancement on YouTube and social media.
Yes.
Until next time, happy learning.
Happy